Welcome to Fun Rich Mom. I'm Mitch Blackford. I'm so glad to have you here today, my mamas. Today is going to be like a breath of fresh air. I'm so excited for you because my guest, Sammy Burt, she is currently writing a book called What is a Grown-Up Anyway? I mean, the title just says it all. And she has been spending the last 3 years researching this from adults around the world to kids. And I mean, she has compiled it all together and she's gotten the results combined with her own personal philosophy. And I don't know about you, but have you ever felt like you're in a room full of adults and you're somehow just missing up on the whole grown-up thing? Well, she's going to address that too. And like I said, I think you're going to feel a lot better by the time this episode is done. And we're going to get kind of deep and philosophical from 10-year-olds and 5-year-olds. It's amazing what these kids are seeing and saying. And then, of course, we're going to finish with a bang. We got a couple of good, I'm going to call them mom jokes for you. So you're definitely going to want to stick around for that. And just to give you a little perspective on this episode, we had technical difficulties galore. I mean, the fact that we even got this recorded is pretty amazing. So you might hear a little extra background noise that normally isn't going on, but stick with it. This episode is worth the listen. So with that, let's get started. Sammy, I can't believe we finally got this thing working.
It's been a trial.
Yes, for those of you joining us, we have been through several systems and mic issues. And I got to tell you, I'm handing it to her right now because she is stuck with this to get this recording for you. So stick with us because I know it's going to be good. I first love to always know, for everybody that's listening, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, who are you? What do you have going on in your life? Obviously, for my US listeners, I hear a little accent.
Yes, yeah. So I'm English. I'm British. I live just outside of a city called Bath, west of London. Quite west of London if you live here, but comparable to the States, we're probably just outside of London. And I live a few miles outside of that in the countryside. So I was tempted to do this outside in the garden because it is a beautiful day here. But then my neighbour started mowing, so I came indoors.
Oh, always with the mowing. I know.
We really inconsiderate.
We have a lot of mowing going on all the time as well. And it's the big rider mower, so it's not quite.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're not there.
Cool. So you have a couple of kids, I think a couple of boys?
I do. I've got 2 boys, yeah, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So my 5-year-old's at school. And my 2-year-old is, I think, at the beach, I hope, at the beach with his dad, hanging out and having ice cream. So he goes to nursery, but only a couple of days a week. And then the other days he spends with my partner.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So hopefully they are having a nice day and getting grubby and tired and having fun, all of them.
Okay. So I have to ask, I don't know, when you say partner, because I hear this every now and then, does that mean husband?
We're not married.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay,
but I
hear people and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's my husband," and I'm like, "Okay, just checking."
Oh yeah, no, I know. Do you know? I was having this conversation the other day. I have no idea what to call him. Right, I'm 36. I can't have a boyfriend anymore.
Oh, you can't? Oh yeah, you can.
Well, maybe I can, but it just, we've got a house and 2 kids, and it just felt like, oh, he's my boyfriend. And we're not married, and we probably won't ever be married. So although part of me would like to get engaged so I could have like a fiance for the rest of my life, like that would be quite fun.
Kind of cool. Yeah, everyone's always celebrating you.
Yes, although I do like throwing out partner and then just watching people going, male partner, female partner. You can see them thinking, and I'm not going to give too many hints, just for the fun of it. So,
I saw your pictures. I checked you out, so I know at least that much. But I was like,
yeah,
I'm not quite sure. I'm totally prying, but what can I say?
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. Yes. So my partner, Jim, who is not my husband, but the father of my children. There we go.
Okay, now we're clear. So if anybody else out there was wondering too, there you go. So you wrote a book called What Is It, or What is a Grown-Up Anyway? And I just, first of all, I love the title.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to have to, full disclosure, I'm in the midst of finishing it.
Okay.
So I would be, yeah, I'd be inauthentic to say I've finished it, but it's nearly there. It's so close. Yeah, what's a grown up anyway? It feels like a big question that I was asking, and then the more people I posed it to, it felt like no one really had an answer for it, and we're sort of carrying around the same question too. And it's a big question and a really frustrating one, and one that's not a top priority, you know, for most of us in our everyday lives. So I thought I would pose it and try and find an answer.
So
About 3 years ago.
3 years ago, what happened? Like, kind of what are some series that led up to this event where you really just came down to, I want to know what is a grown up anyway?
Yeah, well, I'll pepper some moments in, because I think it, as you say, it's a sequence, it's a journey of them.
Yeah.
And some of them are way back as a kid. I was just desperate to be a grown up. I was desperate to hang out with the grown ups. You know, at the end of Sunday lunch, we have a roast on a Sunday over here. At the end of Sunday lunch, and all the kids would disappear, and I'd be sat there wanting to be involved in the grown up conversations. And I think I've spent most of my life trying to be a grown up and trying to be with other grown ups. And then recently I realized, or a few years ago, I realized I don't really know what it is I'm trying to be. You know, I'm trying to live up to something, and I'm trying to put on my you know, my best grown up face. And I'm walking around in heels that I can't walk in. And I'm putting makeup on that I don't really know how it works. You know, and I have a telephone voice, you know, all that crap that you know, all those things that are just like the props of being a grown up. You know, these are the things we walk onto the stage with. And it's exhausting, like wearing them and carrying them and trying to work out how they work, and trying to present yourself to be whatever this thing is. And I got tired of it, and COVID was a really great moment for that. I think, you know, when everybody finally admitted at their happiest, you know, they're sat in their pajamas beneath the screen of Zoom, and some of the masks started to slip about what it meant to be a grown up. So I started to pose that question.
That's cool. So I'm just curious, what was research for that like?
Well, the first year was a waste.
Okay.
In the first, you know, in my very grown up way, I'm going to own all of the mistakes in this. No, it's not true. It wasn't a waste. But what I didn't realize in trying to write a book that secretly is about imposter syndrome, you know, right, between you and I, it's about us thinking we have to be something and not feeling like we are. And the irony, the beautiful irony, is that I spent the first year thinking that I had to write a book that was essentially a collection of everybody else's thoughts. I thought I was like a curator of research and thinking, and I would put it all together. And so I spent a year doing so much research into the rabbit holes I went down. You know, I spent whole days learning about Maori face tattoos. I spent, you know, the amount of rites of passage, ceremonies and things that I spent time in.
You really went worldwide.
I went big, yeah, and legal ages that you can do things, you know, where you can drink and where you can have sex and where you can drive a car and where you can vote and all, you know, I went big, and that it wasn't of no use. And yet it took me a good year, and then I started working with a writing coach. And it was in conversation with her that I sort of, you know, I said, you know, this is my idea, and I want to ask this question, then I want to present all of this research that tries to answer the question. And we went for a walk and around Oxford, and we were chatting about it. And at the end I sort of said, and here's what I think. And she goes, okay, so that's your philosophy. And I was like, oh no, no.
You don't have a philosophy.
I don't have a philosophy.
Deep.
Yeah. I'm Sammy Burt from Burt. You know, I just have a little idea. And she was like, yeah, no, it's an idea about the way that you should live your life. Therefore, it's a philosophy. And I was in denial. I went and Googled, you know, what does philosophy mean?
Wait, let me make sure.
Yeah, I do have a philosophy. And she really liberated me from thinking that I could only be the conduit for everybody else's thinking, and that my opinion and my experiences weren't valid, and freed me to blend that in. So the book isn't now, I haven't gone the opposite way. The book isn't memoir. It's not all about me, but it includes my opinions and my experiences and some of my stories, as well as stories from lots of other people in different walks of life. And I think that was just such a big moment, to go, oh, okay, I'm allowed to have a voice in this. Like, I'm not the librarian here. I can have this.
Yeah, I like that.
Which, as you say, was like just this great irony with what I'm trying to write a book to liberate people from these unhelpful mindsets. And I was trapped by one for the whole first year of trying to write it.
And you don't even see it.
Didn't even see it. Completely had by it. Completely had by it.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of we all have blind spots, and when you have people that can recognize it for you and help you see it, it's like, oh, sometimes you don't want to hear it. It's like,
no, that's it. But
like
just that other
let's keep that one blind.
Yeah. That's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But then the research wise, I went on to interview lots of people from lots of different walks of life. I did surveys, so I got, sort of en masse responses. I had friends of mine who are teachers, have conversations with their kids, with their the students, to get the opinions of children in the mix. And I massively bothered my own kids with this. Since they were too so
wait
small
a second.
to
Your
answer
kids are currently 5 and 2, and in the last 2 years you're asking them deep philosophical. So what is it?
I'm like,
I would love to hear what the 2-year-old responses was.
Yes, like banana or something like that, probably. But certainly my 5-year-old, I've asked him a few times over the last couple of years, and I've tried to keep track of some of his answers when we've been driving, and he's referred to like a grown up at school or something, and I said, oh, that's interesting. What do you think a grown up is? And his latest answer, which I love, was, well, it's just a kid that got older.
Oh,
and I was like, oh my goodness, you don't know how deep that is.
Right.
So I love that. I love that one. So I've been talking about it to anyone that will listen and contribute for a while now.
So I want to kind of take it back, because you were talking about the experiences that you've had and how, you end up in this philosophy and stuff. And there was something on your website that I was reading, a little story about you. Yeah. And I think it was a pretty powerful experience. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because I think more people can relate to this story, and maybe not directly by what happened. But oh yes, it was powerful to read.
Well, I think I know I was there, right? I was about 22, I think, and I was in a relationship with a guy who was a bit older than me, and I was sort of muddling through. I think I hadn't sort of found a direction for myself. I was enjoying life, but I was kind of muddling and following the next thing that felt like a good angle for me. And then kind of realized that the relationship wasn't right, and there was something missing, and it felt like there was a need for a big change. I was in my early 20s, right? So I broke up with him, and I moved in with two of my friends, two of my girlfriends, and we had a lot of fun. 3 girls living together in a house in the middle of Bath. We drank too much, we smoked too much, we laughed just enough. But after a few months, he sort of messaged me and said, oh, can I come around? I really want to talk to you. I need to get some closure. He didn't handle the breakup particularly well. He was really shocked. He was really surprised that I didn't want to be with him anymore. And he came around and he told me in no uncertain terms, he was very direct and confident, that he and his therapist,
his therapist,
my therapist and I think, is how this was posed to me at the kitchen table. My therapist and I think that you have a baby-shaped hole inside you, and that you will only really be happy when you have a child. And so I just think, we should just get back together and we'll have a baby and you'll be fine. And thankfully, I was in such a good place. I was living with really supportive friends, and I was enjoying my work, and I was in a good place, and I felt good about myself. And I think when you're well resourced like that, you are able to hear something so, so striking, such a judgment on who you are, and respond to it well. And I think if I had been in a different place in my life, I might have gone, oh yeah, that's an easy answer. Yeah, let's do that. Let's get back together, have a kid. That will solve everything. And instead I sort of sat there and I took it in and I listened and I said, yeah, I don't think that's what's going on. And I was super calm. And I just said, I don't think that's what's going on here. And I sort of closed it down and he left. And so it wasn't that dramatic in terms of an event. I didn't lose my shit with him or anything. But I do remember sort of laughing inside and thinking, oh my goodness, like, I can't believe that's what you think is missing here. But it did really make me ask the question, is there a hole in me? And if so, what shape is it? Because I think I had grown up in a family with lots of siblings and everyone, you grow up, you find someone, you have kids, kind of that's the cycle of life, right? Yeah. And so there was a part of me that had grown up just assuming at some point I'll meet someone, I'll have kids, and that will be success, for life. That will be the marker of success in my life.
And then you're grown up.
And then you're grown up. Yeah. Then I'm done. Tick. And I think I realized that while I did want to have kids at some point, I really felt like there was a big part of me that was missing. I didn't. And I think the other thing that was important was I didn't want to put the responsibility of my happiness on, on a baby or a child. Mm-hmm. That's desperately unfair. I don't want to have a kid and then ask them to make me happy. But that just feels like a really unfair request. And so I felt like I needed to like myself and find ways that make me happy, so that when the time comes and I have a kid, they are an addition to my life, not the marker of its success.
Sure.
And yeah, so now I have 2 boys and they're amazing. And occasionally I obviously slip and I think, they're making me sad. Well, they're not making me sad. I'm me, and they don't make me happy. Well, that's not true. They make me very happy.
They bring joy.
Bring joy to my life, but they're not responsible for it.
Yeah.
And I think should I just waffle on? I think the other moment that's coming to mind that is similar to this, but slightly different, is despite feeling at that moment like no one else should be responsible for my happiness, it took me about another 12 years to realize I shouldn't be responsible for anybody else's. So it was only probably a few years ago when I had a conversation with my partner, and he suffers from depression at times. He's very open about it. And while I want to absolutely support him in that, it's not my responsibility to, try and pull him, and it's never going to do any good anyway, right? You can't pull someone out of depression. But it took me a long time to realize his happiness isn't my responsibility either. But it's so interesting that those 2 sort of revelationary moments happened, 12 years apart, or whatever it was, 13 years apart. Yeah. For me to realize, oh no one should have to do anything for me, but I'll just keep doing it for everybody else. And then having that moment. So yeah, they were some big ones, I think, that helped me get to know myself a lot better.
So it actually sounds like, of all the people, you are the grown-up at this point. Which is ironic that you're writing the book, What is a Grown-up Anyway? Because these are very deep and knowing. So many people, we just go through life, we don't even take the time to really get to know ourselves. We just get stuck into the day-to-day minutia, and we're in constant reaction mode, right? Going every now and then, I want this, I want that, but we don't really look at the, man, I want to go on vacation, or I want to pull too, or I want this, but we don't look at who do I stand for? What do I need? And what actually brings joy to me from within? Because it's never going to happen without, and so you've gotten that. So going back to the research, I'd be really curious to hear, what were some of the answers that people were giving you? And maybe some of them that were surprising or funny, or just like, whoa, here.
So I, in one of the surveys that I did, I asked people, try and picture yourself at 10 years old. What did you think then that it was going to be like to be a grown-up? And of course, everyone's doing that through their adult lens. So we'll never really know what those 10-year-olds thought. But it was brilliant. It was things like, well, I thought it would be wearing lipstick, and I thought it would be driving a car, and marriage and kids came up loads as markers of, I'll probably have kids. I'll probably get married. Cars, houses. It was fairly, and I'm not saying those things aren't great, right?
Yeah.
But it was fairly sort of superficial. Sounds a bit judgmental, and I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean. It was kind of the obvious stuff.
It's just the things that we hear, we can keep back. Yeah,
that's it. It was kind of fairly obvious stuff, and then those same people were asked a question, and what do you think one is now? And so the shift went from these kind of tick list of cars, houses, kids, responsible bills came up a lot, bills and taxes came up a lot, went from the kids side of things. But then as an adult, people were much more speaking in two qualities. Actually now what I think it is to be a grown up is to pause when I'm angry, or to put myself first, or to really listen even when I don't want to hear what's being said. And so it felt much more qualities based than the kind of childish perception of what it was. And interestingly, I assumed that the kids, in these classrooms where friends of mine had interviewed groups of 10-year-olds, I thought theirs would be really funny, and I thought theirs I could just put all over the book and it would be really funny.
Yeah.
Like this sort of peppering of things.
Little
and they were
comments.
Yeah, but some of those were really sad. And I found it quite hard reading. Like, I remember one coming back, and the question was something like, when do you notice that an adult isn't being a grown-up? And some kid had written, when my dad shouted at the woman in the post office and it wasn't even her fault.
Oh.
He wasn't being a grown-up then.
Oh.
And these moments, and I was like, oh my goodness, we forget how perceptive and attentive they are, and how much they're paying attention to us. And so some of the kid ones were really quite enlightening, actually, where they were pulling out the qualities stuff without really noticing. It wasn't quite the same. Although I did like some of their responses to, what will you be, or what will life be like when you're a grown up? And it was like, well, I'm going to play my PlayStation whenever I want, and I can eat this, and I can stay up late. And then the flip side of that, I think it's going to be really boring because I'm going to have to pay bills, and I'm going to have responsibilities, and lots of them said, it won't be good because I'm going to have to go to work. Which really made me think out actually about the perception of work that we have in our house around our kids. So I started, because I love what I do, right? I really love the work that I do. And I thought, I wonder if I'm playing into this same sort of stereotype. And I think it's quite a British thing. Maybe in the States as well, of being like, oh, work, oh, I've got to go to work. Oh, I've been at work. And I think even people that probably. But even people that enjoy their work, we all sort of just play that part of being like, oh, I've got to go to work again. And I don't feel like that. I love what I do. So I thought, I don't want to teach my 5-year-old that at some point in his life, he's going to have to start working, and that's going to be a drag. So I started talking about, hey, I've got work tomorrow. I started being really positive. And instead of talking about colleagues, I started talking about my work friends. And I just shifted my language a little bit around it. And who knows, right? That might have had no impact. And maybe in 20 years, he'll be excited about the world of work. I don't know.
Well, I'm curious, did it have impact on you? Did you notice a difference in how you already enjoyed it? Did you notice, though, that maybe it raised the level, or you started to look at the people that you work with a little differently as well?
I had a conversation with the people that I work with about it. And so we work in leadership developments. There's a lot of psychology in our work. And so you can imagine we go quite deep in our conversations. But I said that I was doing this thing. And it was really funny because a couple of them said, well, I thought we were friends.
Oh.
and I was like, oh, good, because I thought we were friends. And we had this kind of moment, and I got quite emotional because I had again, back to imposter syndrome, all this crap that we carry around with ourselves. I hadn't wanted to presume that we were friends in case, I get shot down or something. So we had this just beautiful moment. There's 5 or 6 of us in our team now, but there was 5 of us then. And I think we were on a Teams conversation, and we had this beautiful moment of being like, no, I love you. Like, we had this complete love-in, and we're friends. And that's just beautiful. So there was some really lovely outcomes from it. I think the other one is my partner is the exact opposite of me in most ways. He is the most cynical man on the planet. So I get a lot of mocking for my positivity. Yes, in the house. So that goes down well too.
I understand. Every now and then my husband's like, just say it's gonna rain. Just say it's gonna rain.
Yeah. Or I get really excited about something. I'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing. He's like, there's no need to be sarcastic. No, this is how I actually feel. Yeah.
I'll say it's gonna rain, but let's go play outside in the rain.
We'll just put a Mac on instead. Yes.
So do you find that over this time of researching and all the answers that you've been getting, have you started approaching life differently? And you know what? I guess actually the real question is, what is your philosophy on what is a grown-up?
What is a grown-up anyway?
Yeah.
Going into it, I thought the answer to the question would be there's no such thing. I thought that was where my research was going to take me. That was my hypothesis, if I were to use a long word. And actually, I think what I learned through the research, through the conversations, through living it, actually, and practicing some things. I think so. The first thing I learned was that there is a difference between an adult and a grown-up. Okay. So we can define what it is to be an adult, right? You are an adult in certain states in America. You are adult enough to drink at 21 in certain states, right? You are adult enough to drive at 16 in certain states. Over here, you're adult enough to vote at 18. So while there might be a gazillion different answers and metrics for it, there are measures of being an adult. And I don't just mean legal ones, biology and neurology and whatever, you go through puberty, etc. So there are measures of being an adult, but we tend to use the 2 words interchangeably. And as I said earlier, I think what was coming through was, while adult was this measurable thing, grown up with much more qualities. And it was definitely much more about how I experience myself and how I experience you. And so the next kind of learning for me was that adults are, sorry, I'm going to screw it up now. Grown-ups are more aware of themselves. And I don't mean like super, we don't have to have a thesis on this or have gone through therapy or anything, but generally just take a moment here or there to go, exactly as you said earlier, how do I feel about that? I wonder how, or not even that deep, you may not even be asking yourself questions, but you may just notice, I'm uncomfortable right now. Like just noticing. So grown-ups, I think, are a little bit more in touch with themselves. And of course, I don't think you can go off and be a grown-up in a white room on your own. We can't be in isolation. So I think connection to other people is incredibly important in that too. And that doesn't have to be, great deep friendships. Again, it might just be noticing the opportunity for connection at a checkout in a supermarket. What's the moment here when we can be human alongside one another, and a greater connection to the context you're in, at a planetary level, or I'm sat in my kitchen right now, whatever that might be. So for me, there was this kind of this middle nucleus, if you like, of I'm in connection with myself, with others, and kind of with the context that's going around me. And while that sounds really complicated and weighty, I don't think it needs to be. It's just a noticing.
Yeah.
And then I think spinning around that, almost like the atom. This is how I've sort of drawn it out, like the atom. So that's the nucleus in the middle. And then there's these kind of 3 circles spinning around it of the most prominent qualities, I think, that came out in the research. And the first of those was, well, I don't know what order they came out in, but the first that I'll share was around curiosity. That what I was finding was when we experience people to be grown up, we notice them to be more curious. They're less fixed in their thinking. They're kind of sometimes holding multiple perspectives, where you're like, oh, well, we could go either way. And, or just stepping towards something that they don't understand. But there's a curiosity that's going on there. One of my favorite quotes that's attributed to Lincoln is, I don't know that man. I don't like that man. I must get to know him better.
Oh,
I love that. I love this idea that when you come into contact with things that don't sit well with you, you go towards them rather than away from them. Let me learn more about that.
Yeah.
The second one was around compassion. Actually, grown-ups have a massive amount of compassion, and this fits in those three buckets as well, both for themselves, for other people, and kind of for the context or the planet around them. And so there's compassion whizzing around all over the place. And the last, and I can't work out whether to call this confidence or faith, but it's an innate faith or confidence, both in yourself, in others, and again in the context that you're in. So I tend to go into interactions like this. You and I don't know each other well, and I just come into it with a faith that you want this to be as good as it can be. Right. I tend to just give people the benefit of the doubt. And I apply that to myself as well, that if I were to, in this conversation, say something really stupid, I kind of have a little compassion for myself. And I would have faith that, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not that big a deal. And I would have faith in anyone that's listening to go, well, she's human too.
Right.
She said something really stupid. So all of those things are quite liberating, actually. They get us away from hating on others and actually stepping towards them, and they get us away from thinking one way and actually thinking more generally, and making prejudgments. And so it's all, so rather than this definition of being a grown-up actually tightening things, I think it loosens them off. I think it's about letting go and liberating yourself and your thinking and the way that you have to move around in the world. It's much lighter than it is tighter.
So there's definitely freedom that maybe when we have that perception of adulting, right? I got to go adult today.
Yeah. That's like fixed, and there's like these lines around it, and these boundaries.
It gives us this box that we have to fit in versus the grown-up world that you're describing. I don't know. It actually is almost very childlike to me, because I think of my 5 and 6-year-olds. So curious about everything, and I just think everyone is great until there's a reason not to, and they just have the faith. So it's so interesting to me. You have these parallel qualities. They just show up maybe in a more thoughtful way because I have the experience to back it up. So
and it's just about thinking about them a little bit more consciously. So I love that you went there, because that's where I landed, was in this lovely space of this definition, and then going, what's amazing about this is we don't have to learn this stuff. We used to do it. We used to do it when we were kids. Most people really easily. We were full of compassion. We were full of curiosity. And there is an innate confidence that comes with 5 and 6-year-olds that they can just jump off that slide, or they can, they will survive. There is an indestructibility in lots of children. And so what I loved about it was this wasn't about needing to learn something new. This was about returning to something that we've kind of trained ourselves out of. And therefore, we've got evidence to suggest we can do it again because we did it once. So I'm really excited about, and then back to my 5-year-old saying, hey, these are just kids that got older. I'm like, yes, exactly. That's what this is.
Next Einstein.
You didn't have to do 3 years of research to know that. You can't even read. So I'm just loving the freedom of that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is going to be just a breath of fresh air for people to read through. And like you said, a validation, realizing, okay,
I hope so. I'm
not the only one out there that thinks like, am I the only person in this room that, thought it was funny that his shoe made a sound that sounded like body,
Yeah. Well, and so
or whatever.
If nobody goes and reads the book and they listen to this podcast, I will tell you, no is the answer to that. You are definitely not the only person who thinks that bum noises are funny.
We're all just little kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Embrace it.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
speaking of which, well, first I want to find out where can people find out more about you? Where can they find you if they want to get on an email list to get alerted of when it
Yeah.
comes out? Where do we go?
Great. So my website is Your Backpack. So like a rucksack, but we call it a backpack in the UK. So
Yeah,
your
got backpack
backpack
too.
dot okay, cool. Yourbackpack.co.uk. So on there is a page called the Grown Up Book.
Okay.
And you can go on there and register for launch updates. And then I'm on Facebook as Sammy Burt author. That's me being very optimistic that I will be an author. And similarly on Instagram. And then if you're in the business world, I'm really active on LinkedIn. So come and find me, Sammy Burt, in Bath in England on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And we'll throw all of those in the show notes. So
Thank
if
you very
you're
much.
driving or doing laundry or the million of other adulting things that we're
Yes.
doing, you can go back and you can get that link. But so going back to silliness and funness and kind of
Yes.
back to the beginning of our conversation about your partner and what do you call him? I got a joke for you. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Why didn't the melons get married?
Don't know why didn't the melons get married?
Because they cantaloupe.
Oh, I love it. That is a good one. My 5-year-old is going to be all over that. Okay, I'm going to
Yes.
do one too very quickly. This is my 5-year-old's favorite joke.
Okay.
I'm going to forget it now. What do you call an exploding monkey?
Ooh, what?
A baboom.
Oh, I love that. I would share that with my kids too. We love cheesy jokes here. My
Yeah,
husband
me
rolls his
too.
eyes, but me and my girls, we have fun with it.
Yeah, yeah, we're all over the cheese. Love it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Sammy, for joining us and for sharing all of these insights and just
Thank you
being
for having me.
curious. Yeah, being curious to go out there and do this work. And like I said, give a lot of us relief to be like, oh, good, I'm not the only one. There's just that when you find out that, okay, what's going on in here?
Oh,
It's probably going on in that one over there too. And
that's all I want is for someone to
yes,
just exhale like
yeah,
that. That's all
yeah.
I want from this book.
Oh, good. Well, I think you're going to give it to a lot of people. I know just from
Thank
listening
you.
to this, I've just had so much joy and just even just the differences between the kids and then as adults, what we thought of as a kid, what that meant, but
Yeah,
little things that we forgot. So very cool
lovely.
stuff. So I highly
Thank you.
recommend if you're listening, make sure that you get on her email list so that you can get the book when it comes out. I think that you will definitely enjoy it if you enjoyed this conversation. It's going to get into more depth. So make sure you get in that. And then in the meanwhile, if you would share this episode with someone else, I'm sure that they could use the breath of fresh air as well to know that they are not the only one. And of course, subscribe and leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought adulting or being a grown-up meant, and we can continue your research.
Thank you. I'd love that.
So with that, I look forward to seeing you next week. In the meanwhile, make it fun, make it rich, and bye-bye.